The smell of smoke, spilled ale, and unwashed bodies would hit you before you even stepped through the door. Imagine pushing open a medieval tavern in the dead of winter. A low-ceilinged hall with a single hearth barely keeping the frost at bay. Crowds pressed together for warmth, and shadows moving like restless ghosts across blackened wooden beams. Here's the paradox. Taverns were the centre of social life, the hub for news, trade and gossip, yet in winter they became almost unbearable. Patrons shivered over icy draughts, floors were layered with mud and straw that never fully dried, and the air was thick with smoke and the stench of overused fires. One spark of imagination reveals the mystery. People willingly crowded into spaces designed more for survival than comfort, enduring cold and disease for warmth, drink and human connection. Every cough, every clatter of mugs, every whispered insult carried through the smoke-filled hall was part of a ritual shaped by necessity. Tonight we uncover why medieval taverns were both lifelines and nightmares, and why winter amplified every flaw in their design. Behind the laughter and music there was struggle, ingenuity, and survival tactics that have been lost to time, waiting to be revealed for those willing to look beyond the romantic myths. To understand why taverns were so brutal in winter, we must first look at their structure and purpose. Most taverns were simple timber-frame buildings with thatched roofs, low windows, and heavy doors designed for function, not comfort. Hearths were central, but their firepower could only reach a fraction of the room, leaving corners bitterly cold. Patrons often stood close together or huddled around the hearths, but even this offered limited warmth, and the smoke rising from cooking fires added another layer of discomfort. Floors were often bare earth covered with straw or rushes, which absorbed moisture and froze in the cold months. Beer, ale and mead were staples not just for enjoyment, but because they were safer than water. Yet the fermented drinks did little to warm from the inside. Taverns also served as inns, meaning travellers brought snow and mud indoors, further chilling the space. Winter amplified every weakness. Leaky roofs dripped on damp rushes, icy draughts swept through gaps, and the thick walls trapped not heat, but odours and smoke. Social order was fragile too, as overcrowding increased tensions and spilled drinks became hazards. Despite these harsh conditions, people endured, drawn by camaraderie, gossip, and the need for food, showing that survival in a tavern was as much about human endurance as it was about architecture. Here's the clever part. Surviving a winter night in a medieval tavern required a set of practical strategies, often unnoticed by modern observers. Hearths were banked carefully. Bark, peat and wood scraps were added in intervals to maximise warmth and minimise smoke. Patrons learned to position themselves strategically, near walls or on raised benches, creating microclimates of heat. Straw mats or animal hides were used to insulate the coldest seats. Drinks were served in ceramic or wooden vessels, which retained warmth longer than metal cups. Tavern keepers even orchestrated airflow without knowing the science. Opening a door briefly to vent smoke prevented suffocation, while closing it strategically kept warm pockets inside. Lighting also played a role. Rushlights and tallow candles were placed near clusters of people to provide minimal warmth and light without wasting fuel. Food was served hot and fatty, creating internal heat for diners, while shared meals and communal benches encouraged body heat transfer. These techniques show that medieval people understood human comfort and survival in ways modern science later quantified. The logic disappeared once central heating, glass windows, and standardized stoves arrived, leaving us to imagine comfort where none existed. In every grimy, smoke-filled tavern, ingenuity met necessity in ways both crude and brilliant, proving survival is more about knowledge than tools. Modern applications of this forgotten logic are closer than you might think. Passive heating strategies, like clustering people or objects to retain warmth, mirror medieval tactics in emergency shelters or outdoor survival. Layering blankets, insulating floors, and positioning oneself strategically within a room maximize body heat in power outages, echoing centuries-old practices. Communal living, whether in temporary shelters or eco-villages, reduces energy use while increasing safety and warmth. Even meal planning, high-calorie, hot and slow-cooked food, reflects peasant knowledge applied to tavern survival. Understanding airflow, ventilation and heat pockets helps modern architects design energy-efficient spaces. In extreme climates or during winter blackouts, small adjustments learned from tavern survival, like using thermal mass, insulating seating or controlling draft pathways, can drastically improve comfort. Beyond physical survival, the medieval approach also teaches resilience and patience. People adapted to their environment rather than expecting it to adapt to them, a mindset that can inform sustainable living, disaster preparedness, and personal endurance today. The smoky, freezing tavern becomes more than a historical curiosity. It is a manual for resourceful, human-centered design, showing that hardship often sparks the most practical innovations. The story of medieval taverns in winter leaves a lasting lesson. Comfort is never guaranteed, but adaptability is timeless. Patrons survived through observation, clever positioning, communal warmth, and careful use of scarce resources, revealing human ingenuity at its rawest. The romantic vision of bustling inns and cheerful mugs of ale masks the bitter reality of frost-laden floors, smoky air, and overcrowded spaces. By studying how medieval people endured, we reclaim knowledge of energy efficiency, resource management, and communal survival. These lessons remain relevant in a world facing climate challenges, energy shortages, and unpredictable winters. The tavern teaches that survival is a dance with environment, fire, and human behavior, and that ingenuity often emerges in discomfort. If this journey through smoke, mud and frost reshaped your idea of medieval life, carry the insight forward. Share it, apply it, and remember that even in the most inhospitable conditions, humans have always found a way to endure. Comfort may be temporary, but knowledge endures, waiting for those willing to learn from the past.